Broad Street Review Podcast, Philly's online hub for arts, culture, and commentary, where art and ideas meet. I am your host, Darnell Radford. On today's podcast, I head to Rose Valley to experience Hedgerow Theatre's adaptation of Herman Mellville's Moby-Dick, directed by Kittson O'Neil. How do the themes of vengeance and persuasion speak to the society we live in today? Robert Smythe, who plays Ahab, is my guest. Pity Ahab. Pity Starbuck. Pity them all. Here is my interview of Hedgerow Theatre's production of Moby-Dick. Welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm at Hedgerow Theatre. But I'm here with Robert Smythe, who plays Ahab in Hedgerow's production of Moby-Dick, directed by Kittson O'Neil. Hi, Kittson.
Shout out.
Robert, welcome.
Hey.
Wow. What a great production.
Thanks.
You know, it had
because you just saw it.
Yes.
Yes, we ended just 15 minutes ago.
Yes, here we are. Today was matinee. It was wonderful weather in the spring, and I made it out here.
Yes, you did.
So I always, whenever there's a classic piece that is now getting stage treatment, and I always think about, like, I'm wondering if there's someone out there who feels like if they don't have that backstory that you would get from school about this piece, would it be something that you couldn't actually, connect to? And that's never the case, of course. You know, we walk.
Well, we hope
theaters.
it's never the case.
Yeah, but we walk into theaters and see brand new shows all the time.
Right.
But there's something about, like, when you know something has a history, you're just like, I don't know. Do I need to? Should I read the book, or did I before I?
Well, you raise a very interesting point about books and their adaptations, whether it's a play or a movie, right? Because there are some people who want to insist that whatever the dramatic form is has to adhere so closely to the book, right? That there's almost no point in having them two separate things.
Yeah.
But when I was studying for my MFA in playwriting, the point was often made that the great thing about an adaptation is that the book will always be there.
Yeah.
An adaptation, whether for stage or anything else, does not change the fact that you can always go back to the book and have that very specific, unique experience of the book. And there is another experience, which is, like in this particular case, Moby-Dick is over 700 pages long. There's really no way you're going to put it on stage unless you want to do one of those, like, come back 5 times to do it kind of things. And so what was really great about this particular project is that Kittson O'Neil has read, forgive me, Kittson, I think it's 5 or 6, maybe 7 times she's read Moby-Dick. It is her favorite book.
Wow.
So when it came time to adapt it or think about adapting it, she knew exactly what she wanted to bring out about, you know, and now maybe if it were 5 years ago or 10 years from now or whatever like that, she might want to do different things. But, like, right now, this is what's so cool about it is this is what she's thinking right now, right? And with so many parts of the book to draw from, you know, this was just a great, fascinating process of, like, okay, so this is available to us or that's available to us. So the whole idea of getting back to your point about, you know, should I feel bad or, you know, people, oh God, you know, people are always going like, oh, I had to, you know, go look up Wikipedia to find out what it is like.
Never feel bad about it.
Never feel bad about it, but also I like to think that our storytelling is pretty damn strong. And even if you'd never heard of Moby-Dick, if you had no idea, well, actually, a friend of mine came last night. He's from Belarus. He didn't grow up with Moby-Dick, and the story was just compelling as hell for him. So
I was thinking, would this have been a college English course, or I know it would have been way more accessible. It wouldn't have been as specific like an AP English thing. Definitely have been. Well, this would have been a book we would have glanced over at some point.
A friend of mine teaches high school, and I was like, "Oh, bring your students." She goes, "No, we can't teach Moby-Dick in high school." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because it's called Moby-Dick."
Yeah.
So there's that.
Bunch of jokes.
Right, yeah, and we'll never get past it. So, but I think asking any teenager to read a 700-page book is it's not going to happen.
Please open your books.
Although somebody
Moby
did
Richard
for somebody for opening night did give me the classic comics version of Moby-Dick, which is excellent. It's like 32 pages long, I think. Hits all the main points. It's phenomenal, and I don't know if you know classic comics, but they're a very, very good way to. They're better than Cliff's Notes.
I was thinking a graphic novel would be really good.
It's phenomenal. It's good. I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Oh, look, here it is. Oh, we can't show it on Rep Radio. Sorry. Oh, look at that.
So we're audibly experiencing this graphic novel right here in front of us. Ooh.
Oh, look, turn the pages. Turn the pages.
Papers and everything. All right, so. There may be a listener out there who is not fully aware of Moby-Dick, so let's tell them about Moby-Dick.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. Okay. No, go ahead, please.
Or let's talk about this particular adaptation. And I think sometimes people don't realize that an adaptation is not exact. These are sort of cherry-picked in a sense. Not cherry-picked, but just sort of, we're going to tell a specific part of this story, so let's take this.
There's that aspect of it. Another aspect is that, say, there might be several events or even several characters who are important to the story, but evolve over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so they need to be combined in some way for dramatic purposes, because there's just no way to bring on the 23 characters.
Yeah,
so you kind of create one out of them. Or you, with specific events, you might change their order a little bit because, as we were talking when we were doing the show, putting it together, the difference between a book is a narrator can tell you what you don't know.
Yes.
Right? And can pause the action while, and this is very famous in Moby-Dick, there's an entire chapter that explains how to harvest a whale carcass after you've caught it. And the narrator of Moby-Dick can do that because it's a book. You can't do that on stage, and you can't really tell people in a play what to think.
Yeah.
Because even a film has a camera pointing in a particular direction and says, basically you are limited to this kind of information. In a play, we have to make our own decisions about where we want to watch, where we want to look.
Yeah.
And as much as we try to draw attention to a particular area of the stage, if for different people the story is going to be happening in slightly different places on stage, which makes it really interesting, but it's also a challenge to storytelling because you can never really be sure that everybody's following exactly the same track. Yeah.
So
did that answer the question? I think I evaded the question.
No, it did. So how did Hedgerow come to this adaptation? How did we come to what we saw today?
Well, a lot of it is, so Kittson's directed here at Hedgerow before and is extremely interested in incredibly collaborative kind of theater where she's phenomenal, and the kind of like every idea is just like, yes, let's consider that, let's try it out, thank you for bringing it up. So this production is 100% the work of everybody who worked on it, rather than just being told what to do. But I think Jared Reed, the artistic director, wanted to do Moby-Dick, had talked to Kittson about it. I think they looked at a bunch of different scripts even, and Kittson, I think, said, this isn't these adaptations. I know this book too well, and these adaptations are not doing it. I think we looked at one adaptation too that was from England, and Kittson's point about that was like they just don't get America. Yeah. And the whole, and a big thing that she wanted to bring out in this particular production was, whaling ships were this polyglot conglomeration of people from all over. So there were people from the Pacific Islands, there were people from Africa, there were escaped slaves, there were freedmen, there were everybody. And that wasn't really represented in a lot of other adaptations because it was like, let's talk about whales. And I think where Kittson really wanted to put the focus was, so if you're in a ship and there's just this little piece of wood between you and the bottom of the ocean, really, and you're out to sea for 3 to 5 years before you see a nickel, and it all depends on living with these guys, everybody's life depends on everybody else. And in this particular story, everybody on the ship decides, yeah, we could go for the money that we signed on for, but why don't we follow Ahab and go after this big whale and forget about everything else? And yeah, we're probably likely to die. but why? And her big question for this production then was like, why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
What? Because everybody always thinks of Ahab as being crazy. That's like, Ahab, crazy, right? And crazy is not really interesting. So Kittson's whole thing was like, well, let's really think about his charisma, you know, and so we started thinking about cults and cult leaders, and
how would he be able to rally all of these people?
Exactly,
to
right?
See his view
and want to follow him blindly, and follow his dream, even though it's not really very well articulated. It's just simply like, we're going after this, and everybody's like, yeah, let's do that. That's a really good idea, with the exception of Starbuck.
But that is kind of what we look for in leadership. We look for someone who has a direction. And, here we can call it tunnel vision. I think Kittson's notes say single-minded, but he has a focus. So we're already out here on this boat. We can't turn around. We're not going to. Well, so we kind of have to adopt this.
Because what else am I going to do, right? Because otherwise it's mutiny, right? Which is pretty damn serious. And it's also interesting because I think you raise a really good point, which is when there's a really strong or charismatic leader, people give over their judgment, and we're seeing that today perhaps in political circles, right? Where when there are gaps or there are problems, people just kind of go, oh yeah, well, so what, right? Yeah. Where we may become very aware that people are kind of like letting judgment just completely go, or when it's pointed out, it's like, you're actually contradicting something you said even last week, or something that you've said in the past you really stand up for, and now you're kind of letting that go by the wayside because you have a really strong leader. Yes, my leader. And so that's very interesting. I think it's an important lesson for all of us, is like, no matter what political persuasion you are, which is to follow blindly. Yeah. And I think more of us are starting to feel, I'm so tired of it. It's like, I long for the day when I can vote for anybody I want, instead of just going like, no, I have to go for the political party, right? And instead I want to be able to kind of say, I don't want to just follow blindly. I'm tired of following blindly.
And you have to choose a side just to be able to vote.
Yeah.
Period.
Well,
which is also kind of weird. Yeah. So I was thinking on my way here, I was like, I guess one of the questions I was going to ask is how do we find the relevance to today in this piece? And like you said, sometimes we just follow blindly, or we just follow the majority. And there's a sense of fear in just having your own opinion, But I do appreciate how at least the way it was staged, that Ahab sort of understands or sort of resonates with Starbuck's apprehension or concern, but is also still trying to encourage him to move forward with us, and be with us, but not dismiss his concern completely.
Well, for me, and this kind of goes back to what you're saying about like the difference between a book and a production, or a play, right? Because you can look at information in the book and say, oh, but see, that gives you all sorts of insights into Ahab. But if those aren't actually supported by evidence in the play, then that just makes you crazy, because like I've got to bring all this stuff in. So what I really like about what we're doing with Starbuck, so Starbuck is the first mate, and he is the only one. He desperately wants to get the money and go back home to his wife and children. That is why he's out there. It is a job, he says in the very opening scene on ship. My job is to kill whales, not to be killed by them.
Yes.
And that's very important. And at various times, Ahab kind of looks at him and says, he's basically more or less saying, you're a family man. You're not a sailor. I have been a sea my entire life, since before I was 18, and I've never spent, in total, I have not spent 3 years ashore. right? So that is a sailor, and my father was in the Navy, and he had the same feeling. It's just like, I've got to be out to sea. And so there's this kind of feeling I think Ahab has of looking at Starbuck and kind of going, my life could have gone that way, because I do have a wife, and I have a child that I've never seen. I've never seen my child. I just know I have one.
Yeah.
And so there's this kind of feeling of, if you're going to be a sailor, you're in it wholeheartedly. You're in it to win it, right? And if you have any kind of feeling or inkling that you're a family man, or that there's something else, that you can balance these two things, that is impossible.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
I was, we're all excited because, that show that's on the premium channel that's like got everybody all abuzz right now. Its final season's on the way.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Has something to do with dragons, So
if you say so.
Yeah, there's a conversation there about there's father and son who are faced with a decision of either bending the knee and moving forward or dying.
Right.
And they both decide that they already have a queen to serve and they're not going to serve. So, and then there's this quick thought about you're going to destroy your entire legacy if you don't. Both of you died today. There goes your whole bloodline. That's it.
Right.
So I was when Ahab talks about how he is laid in his marital bed only once, you're thinking he does have a family back on shore, that's his legacy doesn't necessarily end here, even if he is still staying the course.
But see, this is Ahab's problem, challenge, whatever, is, yes, on one hand, he has a family, but it's kind of a concept, right?
Yeah.
So he actually says, I have a wife, a sweet young girl wife. I'm married past 50, and set sail for Cape Horn the next morning. Though I made but one dent in my marriage pillow, she bore me a son.
Yes.
So it's kind of a concept, right? But at the same time, he's got this other mission in life, which is, now this is one of those things where when people have heard of Moby-Dick, they're like, oh, yeah, it's all about Ahab wanting to get revenge on the whale, because the whale has bitten off his leg, and he's reduced to stumping around on a peg leg, which I can tell you, folks, is really painful, because I do it for 2 hours, and I just can't imagine doing it for life. And so people think it's all about revenge, it's about revenge and the whale, and yet having to figure out why he does the things he does. I don't want to say his psychology or whatever, but to make it work for me, there are lines and ideas in what we're doing when it's his argument is not with the whale, his argument is with God. And what it really comes down to for me in this is Ahab believes that God is not doing his job. And that because he is not doing his job, Ahab has to. Because if God was doing his job, the evil of the whale, as represented by the whale, would never have been allowed to exist.
Yeah.
So the fact that the whale exists, it's not about his leg, because there's a monologue that he has where he basically says, "Is it not hard, Starbuck, that with this painful load I bear, one leg should be snatched out from under me," right? And it's so what he's really kind of saying there is, the leg is, the whole thing with the leg is in addition to this other painful load he bears. And what is that painful load? The painful load is the responsibility for eradicating the whale, right? So I think right then and there we can kind of get the idea of and this is actually maybe how an adaptation. We've had people come to see the show who are I've read Moby-Dick, I didn't really understand it until we see it now. And all credit to you, Kittson. But for me, it's too easy to say, oh, whale, revenge, leg, right? Because we want to see the world in a kind of eye for eye kind of thing. But there are the kinds of comments that Ahab makes throughout about God, his relationship to God, and his fear, the great fear that he has, that whatever it is that's motivating him he's not quite sure if it's evil or good that's motivating him, because his faith in God is so almost non-existent. He knows God is there, but is not quite sure if God's actually working for which side.
Yeah.
Right. So there's another line Ahab has where he's like, is it I or God or who that lifts this arm?
Yes.
Right.
That's what I was going to point out.
Right. And so it's like, well, so if it's not me, I'm not sure if it's me. So I'm not sure if I have free will. I'm not sure if it's God, and I'm not sure who it is. And so I know that I'm driven. Because lifting the arm is, to throw the harpoon. I know I'm driven. I'm just not sure who's driving me.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is kind of scary in the sense of I have a mission in life. Or all of us, I think, who are passionate.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be listening to rep radio if we weren't passionate. To kind of say, so why am I doing this? Why can't I stop? Why, common sense would say, stop now. And you're like, no. It hurts so good. Keep coming.
But it also says a lot about life too. Being out in this ship, out in the water, you can't turn back. There's just no way. You have to stay the course. You have to move forward. And why not? Head towards the unknown and deal with the obstacles that lie ahead instead of just going back after you've done all this work to get here.
Right, and Starbuck says to Ahab at one point, what we've come so far to get is worth saving.
Yeah.
Right? And you say, you can't turn back. It's like, well, you actually can turn back. The problem is, whether you're going forward or back, the same typhoons are going to strike. The same problems will happen. Mm-hmm. So if you turn back, you're just as likely to have death occur as if you were moving forward. The difference is, if you move forward, you could end up with a hold full of whale oil and make a lot of money, right? Yeah. So turning back is taking almost exactly the same risks, with the exception, of course, of fighting a whale, but almost taking the same risks with knowing that you will not have anything to show for it. Yeah. And
also not having a clear idea of how far along you are either, because the end could be near or it could be even further
you make an excellent point, right? Because it's like if you happen to Kittson and I both did a lot of research about stuff for the show, but if you happen to be on a whaling ship and happen to hit it right so that you were maybe crossing the stream of migrating whales.
Write this down, everybody.
Yeah, okay.
Good information.
Good information to have, right. So if you're going to be a whaling, a lot of times the captains, the sailors, everybody else were kind of unaware that whales were actually migrating. They just kind of knew that they could be found at certain times of the year in certain places, but they didn't know that there was actually a migration, right? So it's kind of like it seemed to be, because this is also the kind of, natural science, naturalism, et cetera, was still in its infancy, and people are kind of just starting to collect data, which is actually referenced in the play. But if you happen to be in the middle of a migration, you could fill your hold. These empty barrels that you've been, there's nothing on a whaling ship except barrels.
Yeah.
Everything else has been taken out because you want to fill up as many barrels as possible with oil. So you could actually go after a whole bunch of whales and fill those barrels in maybe a year or two. Isn't that great? A year or two. Yeah. But if you couldn't, there are examples of ships that had been out for like 5-7 years. 7 years. Now, if you had a family back home, they have no money while you're gone. Yeah. So a lot of families, a lot of wives would do things like they would clean, they'd take in boarder. It was really a hard life. And then, of course, their husband would come home and they'd be flush with money for a while, but it would be like, oh, yay, and then he'd go off again.
But it's like all this, however long between when you left and when you came back and all the debt that has
yeah, exactly, right, exactly, right.
Like, okay, so I just got paid.
And there are lots of letters and lots of documents that show things like whaling men would take off, and even though they had money, they would not leave any for their wives to spend while they were gone. Yeah, so there are like all sorts of letters where, because you could write to a whaling ship and it would go on a ship, and if they so there are all these instances where sacks of mail would get passed around, and someday you might actually end up with a letter that's 2 years old.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? And your wife is saying things like, you have a son, just so you know, and oh, by the way, we're in debtor's prison or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I cannot imagine.
If you get back soon, that'd be great.
So just
no
like
rush.
no
but things are a little tough.
Yeah, just yeah. I don't want to whine.
Yeah. The moment about the coin where I was thinking in my head, I'm like, this is sort of an empty reward, because there's yes, you could win this coin, but you might not live to enjoy this coin anyway. So you're just sort of moving forward for the sake of
right, exactly,
moving forward, and it becomes more like it's more like I guess like a badge or a token. It's not even a.
Well, there is that. It's
a symbol than it is a reward.
Well, it's interesting because we have played with that coin. So what happens is Ahab offers a reward, a gold doubloon, which, oh God, I can't remember. Eli Lynn figured out how much it's worth would be equivalent, but it was worth a hell of a lot of money, maybe like a year's worth of pay, right? So it's an actual ounce of gold.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And what Ahab does is he says, I will give this doubloon to whoever first spots Moby-Dick, because he wants to make sure that everybody's eyes are peeled. And he literally nails it to the foremast, so that it is there calling out every day, And one of the things that Kittson had every one of the cast do is whenever they could, if ever they pass it, everybody does different things. Some people kiss it, some people stroke it, some people make the sign of the cross in front of it. But it's like you're aware as soon as it goes up
eyes on the prize,
that everybody is think about it all the time. But just as you said, it's a short-term gain, right? Because it's like, what good is this gold coin in your pocket if you're not going to be alive to spend it?
Yeah.
And that again goes back to this kind of this idea of the charismatic leadership, which focuses you on short-term goals, so that you completely lose sight of the fact that something else is never going to happen, right? I mean, if we went back to politics, it's like, oh, look, short-term gains or short-term this, whatever they got. But all these other systems are being dismantled.
Yeah.
So 3 years from now, what will we have?
It's like, who cares if you're checking off this list here of unimportant things?
Because
down the stuff that we will not be able to do down the road because of what you're doing right now is really what we're focusing on, like, climate change.
Exactly, right. So there's a little bit of a kind of bread and circuses aspect to it, right? Yeah. Of just kind of like, oh, look over here because something else is going on over there. With Ahab and Moby-Dick, there's also this kind of thing of like, really, hey, Ahab, what are you thinking might actually happen after you kill Moby-Dick, right? So the sailors at various points go, oh, yeah, I really want to kill Moby-Dick. He's so large, we'd be able to fill the hold immediately with oil. We would, it'd be, Moby-Dick has talked about, the whale himself has talked about many times in the play, and he takes on this almost mythical existence because the sailors talk about him in different ways. He's been around for decades, and they say, oh, the whale oil that he'll provide will burn brighter and whiter than anything else. It's going to be great. Yeah, will it? Right. But so they're all looking at it as like, so what is Moby-Dick? Moby-Dick is the answer to a problem, right? And for Ahab, it's like, yeah, there's really no thinking beyond. I'm going to meet up with him. And then, I haven't even thought of this. Like, so if I actually killed Moby-Dick, what would happen next? Would I ascend to the right hand of the Father? I don't know.
And who is this for besides yourself?
Well, right, exactly. Well, and that's interesting because in a way, I believe Ahab really does believe that somehow he has been sent to save the world.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he has to. That's
there's a greater good beyond.
Oh yeah, and it's because
beyond the vengeance that we believe is the lair.
Right. It is. He has to do God's job because God sucks at it.
That attributes to his single-mindedness.
Yes.
You know, tunnel vision. Because even I guess when they get off the ship and get onto the boat,
the whaleboat at the end.
The whaleboat. Yeah, it's like, you're not coming back.
Right, exactly.
It's pretty clear.
It's like.
So is Starbuck just hanging back, waiting? Or was that the thought, or is Starbuck turning around? Because now Starbuck has the opportunity to turn around.
Yeah, but as you've already said, if he turns around, he's going back with as he says, 77 barrels of oil. I think it's 77 barrels of oil and some whalebone and other, But Adam Altman, who plays Starbuck, everybody was doing their own research, was great. So he said, I looked that up and I discovered that what we got from this first, so we actually kill a whale or hunt a whale and kill it in the course of the show, in the first act. Adam said, the yield from that is actually less than average. So it's actually pretty pitiful. So going to your point of, if you turn around, it's like, if he goes home, he doesn't really have all that. And now, true, he's got fewer people to share it with. Yeah. So his share will be bigger, but
you were just on a whale ship.
Yeah, you were just on a whale ship, and you really didn't do a good job. You suck at this.
It is, I guess, is this considered a tragedy?
In what sense? Like in the classic sense of, does the hero have foreknowledge of what will happen to him and he does it anyway and all that kind of stuff? Possibly. But I wish you hadn't asked that question. Because now I'm like, I'm trying to think like, I'm sure you have other questions.
But, it could be rhetorical. We'll just let it float out there.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
that's the question that after the interview, after you come see the show, 2 tickets because theater's more fun with +1. After you do all of that, that's sort of the question. It's like, all right, now what?
Well, you saw it. Was it a tragedy?
It just seems like there's only an end, but it doesn't lead to a beginning.
When Oedipus has his eyes poked out, it's a tragedy. Does that lead to a new beginning? In a way, the thing about a tragedy is kind of like, you shouldn't have put your finger in the electrical socket, and then you did, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I guess the thought is, as long as one of us lives to tell the tale.
The tale of warning, right?
Yeah, because that's what happened. Well, not even the tale of warning, but just to say that we got this far. Or how close we were to it, because otherwise we would just be a whale ship that didn't make its way back,
Right. So it's a kind of the lesson. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
But the fact that we were there as the audience, who are the air, the birds, the atmosphere, we were able to experience this whole thing, but none of this would have been anything that the people on land could process.
Right. At the same time, too, I think that, so like why read Moby-Dick and, it's a classic, stuff like, who cares? For me, it's got to be about, is it entertaining? And by that, I don't mean, tap dance and everything else, but just like, is there a story? Is there something that I can invest in? Am I invested? Yes. Do I care about the outcome? And I'm curious because you saw it, even when you knew, as you said, the whaleboat takes off in the last part of the play, and it's headed in a particular direction, did you care? Or were you kind of like, I know where this is going. So, you know what?
No.
Maybe I should try to get out of the parking lot now.
No, in that it is about the ride. And, that's the same thing as like if you go to see Romeo and Juliet, you know how it ends, but that doesn't mean you're not along for the ride, even if this is the 4th company to produce it.
And that's the thing I think that makes a really compelling story of any kind, right? Which is why would these 2 young kids be driven to do the things that they do, to care that much about something, right? I'm going to get this wrong, but the New York Times Magazine has a big article about Taylor Mack in it this weekend. And there's a call-out quote of his, which is like, we go to theater to see the people that we could be. I think it's something like that. Another homework assignment, everybody.
New York Times, Taylor Mack.
Right. And I think that's a pretty interesting thing, right? Which is like, we all wish we had more passion in our lives, right? I was talking with someone I met a while ago who just said, I just wish I had passion in my life. I'm like, oh my God, you're like 41, maybe, and you feel like you have no. She was just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of over. I was like, what? Yeah. Oh my God. So for Romeo and Juliet, for Ahab, Starbuck, a lot of the people that we want to see things about, that certain television series you may have been referring to before, I wasn't sure. What's going on there are these larger than life big decisions. Yeah. That hopefully get us to say, so if I were in that position, what would I do? That to me is the most interesting story.
Yeah.
And like you were saying before about like, so what happens at the end? For me, a good story is one where you finish it, whether you close the cover of the book or you walk out of a theater or you're driving home or talking to your friend on the train, whatever it's going to be, and you're like, why would he do that? And somebody else says, well, I can see why. And you're like, whoa, wait, where you actually be able to kind of go like, whoa, rather than the kind of experience you have where it's just like, that, nobody would ever do that.
Yeah.
There's nobody would ever do that, or that person did it, but I think it's most successful and most fun where you're kind of like, would I do that? Could I do that?
Well, it's also a time where, we're so inundated with distractions right now. So we have so many choices. So we could opt out of a journey, something that could be life-changing or something that could take us in a totally different direction because we have all these safe choices over here that could be experiences in themselves. But, in this time, it's like, what else would there have been to do? Like, yes, I have a family, but
it's not exactly like I could be whaling or selling insurance.
Yeah, it's not as thrilling as this. I want to know that I've done something.
It's done something, yeah. Right. So, we just saw Hamilton, my wife and I, Wednesday night, and again, it's like not only is great show and everything else, but what's really interesting, and I think what really comes out of that is that here's this man who, one of the many lines in there, but why do you write like you're running out of time, right? And that idea of like, right, we're only on this earth for a short amount of time, so why aren't you making the most of it, right? If all you're doing is trying to get through life in a kind of like, look, I made it, safe, kind of like when you played tag or something as a kid.
And you don't have to find the urgency in life. Life is urgent.
Yes. And to kind of get to the end, it's like, look, I was safe. Nothing went wrong. It's kind of like, well, when I'm closing my eyes for the last time, I do not want to be in the position of going like, well, I could have done that. Yeah. Right. That's why I got tattoos starting 3 years ago. It's kind of like, what am I waiting for? Yeah. And like that whole thing of like, I want to slide into my coffin with a drink in one hand and no money in my bank account in the other, right? It's just like, I'm done.
Completely drained.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's just like, I made it work. I figured it all out.
Yeah, well, I mean, that conversation happens a lot too. It's like, why are you hoarding money away for retirement when you could be living life now? Like,
right, exactly.
You're putting life on hold right now
for this time when
future that's not even a problem.
When you could be having fun now.
Yeah,
you're making me think too about like the moment at the end when Ahab has the harpoon in his hand, and he is meeting his
beautiful scene though.
Goal. Oh.
I love that when
a special effect happens,
and I didn't see it coming, and when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, because the set is so simplistic. I guess
I think we like to say spare, right?
Sparse,
yes,
spare.
Sparse, yes,
yes. And
it is exactly what it needs to be and no more.
I feel like depending on the audience, that there would be an applause there'd be gasps. It's like, I didn't know that was going to happen. That shows up whoa.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard for them to applaud because I think in that particular moment it's like,
we know
whoa, a whole bunch
coming.
of stuff is hitting the fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would really take people out of but but what I was going to say is in that moment, I think there's this great feeling. It's funny because I didn't know it was happening until our stage manager mentioned it to me when we were going over cues, because I'm yelling out to the boat crew for their strokes. And so I yell things and they reply, heave. And to get them started, I yell, heave. And until we're in rhythm, it's kind of whatever. And then she said, and I know when you're about to change, because all of a sudden the quality of your voice changes. And everything just kind of falls into this really kind of easy whatever. And I'm aware of it now. And it's like, oh, yeah, it does. And there's something that's just like, it's joyful. Mm-hmm. It is this idea of like...
Now that we've gotten our rhythm.
We have a rhythm, but also this is the moment. Mm-hmm. Like you were saying before about doing something with your life, right? Like this is the moment where my life is defined.
And you're all in sync at that time.
And we're all in sync, and I'm in charge, and they literally have my back. And then in the event that you were talking about too, I mean, like the choreography that Kittson worked out for that, it's just like I literally don't know what's happening. I just know that all of a sudden I'm in the air. Yeah. And I have no idea what people are doing to make that happen. And I don't want to know because to me it's just like magic. But in that moment, it is like, oh God, this is what I wanted. This is like, it's like almost, I feel like it would be like falling into the sun. In that moment of just kind of like, in the moment that this thing happens, this goes back to what I was saying before about what was he thinking about? Yeah. What would the aftermath be? It doesn't matter. Because I think all that Ahab's ever wanted is in that moment to just greet or meet the thing head on.
And it doesn't matter for us as an audience because we're in this moment. We're not, we don't have to think about tomorrow. We don't even have to think about the end of the piece. We're in this moment living it too, and I just love the energy on stage. It does feel like we're one of the shipmates, and we're just not working as hard as they are. I'm just like, No,
you guys, I have to say, are not working at
all. We're phoning it in. Everybody else is clearly killing it.
Yeah.
No, I was completely engaged here. I can see why it was recommended. It is well deserved. This ensemble on stage is just, a joy to watch. And I hope the audience felt the same way that I felt watching this as well. Sometimes you can't tell, I went to a show the other day where the director was saying to young kids, don't chase the audience. Just because you got a response tonight doesn't mean it's going to be the same tomorrow and so on. We know this. But I was thinking that, and I was like, don't think for a second, we're not here with you. This audience is very much in tune, and we're just so focused and completely swept up by the story that's being told on this stage right now. And the space, the Hedgerow Theatre lends itself to this as well, too. Like, we just feel like we're on a ship.
Yeah.
The whole space, and I'm looking down at the floor under my feet, and I'm like, it's the same as the stage. Okay.
Well, and it is a kind of cool thing too. So Hedgerow is housed in an old grist mill, which I have to check the actual dates, but I think was actually standing at the time that Moby-Dick was written.
Yeah.
Right?
Moby-Dick was 1851.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, when you think about something like that, it's kind of like, oh, right, okay, And Rose Valley, which is... No. The reason for that, very important. Rose Valley, because Rose Valley, Pennsylvania is the center of the arts and crafts artist movement of the early 20th century. So if you know anything about like Mercer tile or like over in Europe, there was now I've forgotten everybody's names, but you grew out of the Art Nouveau and movement, but the idea of like let's bring craftsmanship back to things, handmade things. It was a response to machinery and all that kind of stuff. And it flowered here in Pennsylvania first, here in Rose Valley before it went out all over the country.
And I feel like I get that education every time I've been here.
But somehow it's not sticking.
It's because I haven't been here enough times. So yes, I have to keep coming back. Yes. So, if you are just as engaged as I was in the theater here, you should make your way to Rose Valley to come see Hedgerow Theater's production of Moby-Dick. It was directed by Kittson O'Neil and has a wonderful ensemble. I don't think, was it led by Robert?
No,
You're not the lead.
No, not at all. No, no.
This is a true ensemble piece.
It absolutely is.
Everybody has their moments too.
Oh yeah.
This is a great production. The Barrymore team that's made their way up here, they are not blowing smoke. They're not blowing smoke. You gotta get here, okay? So just like anything I take a moment to hit record on, you go to the website, get some tickets, get more than one. Theater's more fun with +1.
And if you use the special code PQUAD when you get your tickets, you can get a rope burn, which is a special rum punch, which was designed specifically for the show by Brett Lyon, who's the former beverage manager at Bistro La Manette in Philadelphia.
Wow. Okay.
It's damn good. PQUAD. PEQOD.
I was about to say, good luck spelling it. That's it for now. Thank you. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, Robert. Thank you for taking this moment to unpack my experience here. I'm still engaged. I'm going to be on the train engaged when I talk to the next people I engage on my way through the rest of my day. I'm going to
take lots of postcards and hand them out.
What a great experience this was. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Doing this. The team here at Hedgerow, please make your way out here. It is on stage if you're listening to this. As it comes out, you should be buying tickets while you are listening and telling your friends that you're going to go see it. Be a part of this conversation. Hedgerow Theater's production of Moby-Dick. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.